All right, let's dive right into this. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating puzzle from the retail world. Zumiez just dropped their Q1 2026 Form 10Q filing. And honestly, the headline figures are a bit of a head-scratcher. They brought in over $193 million in just 3 months, yet somehow, they still posted a $13.2 million net loss. So let's find out exactly why. To crack this 34-page SEC Form 10Q, we're going to act as financial detectives and hit 5 quick steps. Unpacking the top line, the bottom line reality, following the cash, legal hurdles and operations, and then wrapping up with the final takeaway. Step 1. Unpacking the top line, specifically looking at that revenue growth. So Zumiez generated a massive $193.3 million in net sales for the quarter ending May 2nd, 2026. That's actually a really solid jump from the $184.3 million they made during this exact same window last year. You've got more money coming through the front door, which is exactly what you want to see when you're tracking retail performance. Now, even though they operate globally under banners like Zumiez, Blue Tomato, and Fast Times, the US is still their undisputed heavyweight champ, bringing in over $145 million all on its own. Europe chips in nicely with about $32 million, followed by Canada and Australia. But yeah, this really highlights just how much the brand still leans heavily on the American consumer. But hey, quick caveat here. Favorable foreign exchange rates, mostly over in Europe, actually artificially bumped up that revenue by $3.5 million. It's just a great reminder of how global currency swings can quietly pad the top line without a single extra t-shirt actually being sold. All right, moving to step 2. The bottom line reality. We've seen the revenue, but where did all that money actually go? Because this is the core mystery of today's explainer, right? If sales are up and the company is hauling in over $193 million in a single quarter, how do you still end up posting a loss? Well, the reality check hits pretty hard. Despite that huge top-line number, they posted a net loss of over $13.2 million for the quarter. Now, sure, that's slightly better than the $14.3 million loss they posted in Q1 of last year, but man, it is still a massive chunk of change heading in the wrong direction for the business. The mechanics here actually answer our question instantly. The sheer cost of goods sold, the actual cost to design, source, and ship the merchandise, just devoured a ton of that revenue. That left them with $61.3 million in gross profit. And as you can see, $60 million just simply wasn't enough to cover their $76.5 million in SG&A expenses. That leaves an operating loss of over $15 million. And that is before we even start talking about things like taxes and interest. Just to cut through the financial jargon for a second, SG&A is just selling, general, and administrative expenses. For Zumiez, we're talking about the everyday, unavoidable costs of keeping the lights on, paying store staff, buying supplies, covering depreciation, running the website, marketing, corporate office costs. When those day-to-day survival costs outpace your gross profit, well, a net loss is pretty much mathematically guaranteed. So let's go to step 3, following the cash. We're going to treat the corporate wallet like a personal bank account here to see exactly how it's being managed. Check this out. On January 31st, 2026, Zumiez was sitting on over $127 million in cash on cash equivalents. By May 2nd, literally just 3 months later, that pile had plummeted to $66.9 million. That is a $60 million drop in a single quarter. You immediately have to wonder, how on earth does a retail chain burn through that much liquid capital so fast? But hey, don't panic. The cash didn't just evaporate into thin air. It was strategically rerouted. They parked over $27 million into safe, short-term investments known as marketable securities. They also poured $6.5 million into physical inventory, and they returned value to their shareholders by buying back nearly $6 million of their own common stock. That share repurchase program is actually a huge signal of corporate confidence. Back in March 2026, the board greenlit a brand new $40 million buyback plan. During Q1, the company stepped in and scooped up 265,000 shares at an average of $23.56. Because of that aggressive move, they still have almost $34 million locked and loaded to buy back more shares whenever they feel the timing is right. All right, step 4, legal hurdles and operations. Let's look at how they are resolving challenges behind the scenes. Because while the financial math is super fascinating, you always got to dig into the commitments and contingencies buried deeper in the filing. For instance, they're currently clearing a $2.89 million settlement to resolve a class action lawsuit over in California. Filed by former employees alleging wage and hour violations, they settled this after an April 2025 mediation, and it's just waiting on final court approval. It's a textbook reminder of the legal overhead and operational risks of running hundreds of physical retail stores. And speaking of those physical stores, their biggest operational commitment by far is real estate. While they've got about $56 million in lease liabilities due in the short term, look at this. A staggering $148 million tied up in long-term store leases, stretching out into the future. Retail needs prime, high-traffic locations, right? And securing those spots means locking into some serious, inescapable long-term financial commitments. Which brings us to our fifth and final step, the final takeaway. Let's do a holistic health check on all of this. We've seen the operating losses and the rapid cash drain, but we really need to put it all into perspective for the rest of the year. The company actually calls this out directly in the 10Q, saying, and I quote, "Interim results are not necessarily indicative of results for the full fiscal year due to seasonality." Basically, in the retail sector, a sluggish, money-losing Q1 does not mean the sky is falling. Back to school season and the winter holidays, that is where retailers traditionally make their real money. And they are absolutely gearing up for those exact future seasons. Despite taking a Q1 net loss, Zumiez is sitting on over $153 million in inventory. That's up from $146 million just back in January. So their warehouses are packed, the shelves are completely stuffed, and they are fully armed and ready to sell when that shopping rush hits. So what is the ultimate question we're left with today? It's whether Zumiez' strategic cash shuffling, those stock buybacks, and this massive inventory buildup are going to translate into major profits when the peak holiday seasons finally arrive later this year. They have laid the groundwork for sure, but at the end of the day, it's all going to come down to whether the customers actually show up. We're definitely going to want to keep our eyes peeled on those upcoming seasonal earnings reports.